Okay, everybody, it's John Ziemba here, and in this video, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be working on how to create a listing presentation in Command. So, first thing we're going to do is we're going to log into commandagent.kw.com. We're going to click on the KW in the top left-hand corner, and then we're going to click on the designs icon, applet, or text here on the left-hand side, and that's going to take us into our designs. What you'll notice here is that it says My Design Templates, and this is all your saved designs that you've previously created. So what we're going to do is we're going to start from scratch and we're going to create a brand new listing presentation. So in order to do that, all I need to do is click on the plus in the bottom right hand corner, and what I'll notice is that I can then choose print because that's typically what is thought of as the listing presentation. I click next, and what I'll notice on the left hand side is I'll have these different content options here. So I'm going to click on listings, and then I'm going to click on the listing presentation. Now I have two different options. I have what's considered a modern and one's considered whatever's considered. One is considered a modern, one is considered a classic. I am just going to click on the modern in this case, and I'm going to walk you through how to create a listing presentation. Now it's very important that we do this correctly. The first thing I suggest you do is come up here and title this. So I'm going to type it listing presentation 329. Okay, so I know the date that I created it here. Now, if I ever need to save it, I can come over here and click on File Save. So what I would suggest you do as you're creating it, periodically click and save, just in case you get taken away or something of that nature. Now, the way that this behaves, the way that the listing presentation behaves in the editor, it behaves a little bit differently than the other presentations or the other items that we work on. So listing presentation and buyer's presentation is the same process. So what I'll notice here is that on the left-hand side, I have a series of templates, and there's about 30 different pages in here. So anytime I click on a page, it is actually adding that page to my presentation. What I'll notice is that in this case, I'm going to add the first 4 pages, okay, to be easy to start off with. What I'll notice is that in order to scroll between the pages here, I can use the arrows at the bottom here next to the word where it says pages. I can also click on pages, and I can click on the individual page. Now, once I get more pages than that will show up on one row, I can click on Show All Pages in the top right hand area here, and I will see additional pages. Okay. Now, what I really need to do for this particular one is I need to delete the first 2 pages because they're not actually part of the presentation. They're the instructions and just a listing page template cover. I will also see kind of this phantom page that is auto-created. So I want to make sure I delete whatever pages I don't want. So all I have to do is I can just click on the little arrow on the pages there. On the thumbnail, I just click on the little arrow and then click on the trash can. And then what that will do is that will delete those pages. I also have the option here of duplicating a page. And if I click on the plus sign, what you will see is it will add a blank page. So just be aware of that those options are available to you. And what we'll notice is I'm going to start off on the first page here and show you some different options you can do. Now, understand that we have the option of customizing this as much as we want. What I'm working on is I'm working on going to a digital listing presentation. So what I've found is that the font size needs to be bigger. So I want to make sure that maybe my font size is about a size 16 here, and it becomes a little bit easier to see. If you're curious on what that looks like, so I have the ability to move the text around as needed. Now, what I would usually like to do is create a very generic one so that if I'm in a hurry and I need to print it out, if I'm going to print this out or send this to somebody, I want to make sure it's some level, there's a generic. So instead of saying Maria and Chris Roberts, I can just click inside here and I can delete the text, okay? I find that sometimes it's hard to click inside the text box and get where I want to go. So I have the option of using this at the top here, the typewriter. So in this case, instead of saying Maria and Chris, I might just say you. So I can say that a custom consultation exclusively provided for you. If you've added your photos, you can just definitely come through here and easily add your photo here. What I'll notice is that there's actually two photos on this picture at the bottom. I'm gonna zoom in here a little bit. There's a couple photos here, so if I delete the first one and delete this, there's one behind there. So I just delete them all, and then I can just easily add my photo. And then if I need to size it, I can just click the little dots at each corner and make the corners here. Now I notice on my photo that I have a hard cutoff on the bottom, so I want to make sure that I'm down at the bottom of the page, right? So it's easy so that my body isn't kind of just getting cut off in the middle there. If I need to move anything, I can just move whatever text over, and again, when I need to edit that, I can come over to the typewriter and edit that information. One thing that I noticed here is it has complements of first name and last name. What I actually am doing is I'm going to delete the first name and I'm just going to move the last name over, and I'm just going to use the typewriter just because otherwise, to me, having that in two different fonts, it makes it a little bit harder and I got to keep moving around with that. So I'm just going to put my name right there. Again, I'm going to look at what the important font sizes are as needed, and I think 16 is about the easiest to see here. All the way at the bottom here under your DBA here, it says like size 6 font is going to be your market center address. If you need to add that, you can add that in there if you want to delete it, or if you can delete it depending on your requirements, depending on where you're at, you can do that. We also have the Keller Williams DBA logo there. So if I need to replace that and I've added the logos here, I can just click on this logo and then I can come over here and I hit replace logo and then I can just position it where I need to do it. Now I've been noticing one item here and I want to mention this in case you guys see this. On the left hand side you can see there's only 4 icons right now. What I find is that sometimes I need to click the text icon and then click a picture and I'll get the additional icon that says images and KWLS here. Okay. Now, I've never seen a house that looks like this in my life, so I might want to change this picture and I might want to make it something generic. So I want to show you where there's some stock photos. So if I'm over in, again, you see I don't see this images icon here. So what I do is I click on text and then I click on the photo, and then if I keep the photo, it looks like if I keep the photo selected, it shows up here a little bit better. Now, if I'm clicking on company, what I'll notice is that KW has some stock images that are available. So in this case, I can use one. If I want to replace this one, I can use the bus photo here and I can have this generic bus picture in here, or something else that I want to use. Now there's two websites that I recommend. One is pixabay.com. You can get free royalty-free images to use, and the other one is Pexels. You don't want to use free images from Google. You can get yourself in a lot of trouble with that. So once I've gotten done, and again, if I want to edit all this text here, I'm just going to select this text box and I'm going to come to the typewriter. And maybe instead of doing download my app and putting this here, I've actually purchased my own domain for my app so that it's easy for me to give out. So you might want to consider doing that. So then instead of having that app.kw.com and all those letters and numbers, you can just simply purchase a domain and what you'll notice is that that's forwarded directly to my KW mobile app landing page. Okay, so back to our listing presentation. I can hit save changes anytime that I want to do that. I've talked a little bit about how to replace the picture. We've shown how to add your image. Now, anytime that we're editing text here, I want to just show we have this editing bar that will not only it allows you to do some different text alignment options. If I need to change the font, the font size, I can do that here. The font I can do here, and even the color. If I want to change the opacity so I can make it not as, I can make it a little less opaque. I can do that here. And again, I have to be selected on the font to do that. You'll also notice here that I have the options here to transform, so I can rotate something using these options here. If I make a mistake and I do something, so let's just say I delete this, I can go over in the top left-hand corner and then I can click the either undo or redo buttons right there, and it will redo that particular option here. Okay. I also have the options when I want to bring something to the forward or to the front of using the arrange options, and I have send forward, send backward, send to the top, and send to the bottom. Okay, just so you know that that's how you're going to arrange items on the page. Now, if I need to delete something, occasionally what I'll notice is that there's usually a garbage can over here. But if I can't find the garbage can, I might have to use this arrow over here, depending on your computer. I've seen that with Macs, in order to remove the garbage can. So just be aware that if I don't see that garbage can, and for specific types of items, it might be more difficult to find, especially for if you have a background image on a page. Finding that can be a little bit difficult. I also have the ability to unlock and lock things so that they can't be edited or easily deleted. Okay. So what you've seen here is we just gone through page 1. Now the next option would be we would just go and we would continue to add the different pages here. So right now I've added page 1 and I've added page 2 here, and again I want to make sure I change the picture on page 2 here. So if I go to my images and I go to my library, what I'm just going to end up doing is I'm just going to delete this one, and then I'm going to add my own. Okay, something like that. Now if you're like me, and you may want to put some kind of a border around this, or put a something here, because you can see I get cut off at the bottom. So one option I have is when I'm not clicked on anything is I have either drawing or shapes, right? Either one will pretty much get me here. You'll see there's a little bit more options with drawing, a little more customization, and then I have shapes. But so if I did something like a shape right here, and I'm just going to put that right over my photo. And again, as I was showing you the layer options here where I have the ability to arrange, I can send this option backwards, and what you'll now know is my picture will be in front of it, and now it doesn't look like my picture's in the middle of nowhere. It looks like I have a picture in my, I have a background in my photo. So that's just one example there. Other thing I did want to point out is that if we have our logos, which we had on the first page here, we want to make sure we have the PNG so that we're not getting all those items. Always you don't see a white background or something like that. So just keep in mind that having the correct logos in the PNG format makes things a little bit easier. Now, if we come down and we look at the rest of the pages in the templates here, the third page is actually supposed to be about that subject property. Now, if this property has ever been listed, what I can do is I can come over here, I can click on the KWLS option here. Anytime I select, it looks like it's appearing. I can click on the KWLS and I can select the option. This works for both active and closed listings. I can use I find the easiest way is to search by MLS number. Okay, so in this case, I'm just going to pick Main Street. And if I search by address, it's going to pull all the main streets that are in the system. So I highly suggest if you're going to do this is that you go and you find an MLS number of a property. So I'm just going to pick this one in New York. I'm going to hit select, and what I'll notice is that there's a photo right here of the property. So I can just click this photo and hit replace. Now normally you're going to take a photo of the subject property, or you're going to have the seller take it, or potentially you're going to drive by, or you're going to steal it from Google Images, which I don't recommend, but that's an option here. If you have the details here, you can fill out these details here. And again, if you just want a generic presentation and you don't necessarily want this page in there, you can just come down to the pages option here and you can delete this specific page from here. Okay. Now, the next page talks about the general area. And here's what I'm finding is that the neighborhood snapshots that they have can be a little bit not necessarily showing the message that I want to pay. So in my area, what happens is that will uh, it will pull all just the single family homes and doesn't include the townhomes, which doesn't work for if I'm maybe listing a townhome. So maybe I don't want to display this. I can easily just delete that option here, and I can add a text box here. So I'm just going to add a text box right here, and the font's a little bit big, so I'm going to put it maybe down to like a 20 here. And I can just come to the typewriter and I'm going to put whatever stats I want. So I might put stats for, in this case, I'm going to use Glendale Lakes. Okay. And I'm going to put number of homes on the market, 22, number of homes under contract, I can put 10, and then I can say number of homes closed in the last 6 months, 7, right? And if there's another statistic, so for example, I might have something like average days on the market, right? I can make these up. I might want to be careful about putting too many spaces in here. I can do something like this, and I can hit save changes. And what I will see is I will have my own stats just for that particular neighborhood. And if I need to adjust that a little bit. Now, if I need to make the text, so maybe, for example, what I might do is I might get rid of the first 2 lines here, okay, so that I have this. But maybe I want to make this text bold I can just come and that way it gives me the separation between it. So again, I'm just selecting the text here and then selecting the bold feature here. Okay. And if I get the whole thing, it'll do the whole word. Right. So now what I find is that if I'm going to use different sizes in text, it's a little bit easier to have a separate text box for that. So again, if I just unclick from where I'm at here, I click on text and I just say I want to do body text here. I like using the typewriter, and I would say stats for Glendale Lakes. Okay. Now, what I'll notice over here on the right-hand side is I said, what's happening in Barton Hills? Well, I don't necessarily know that I need this for every single option or every single community. So what I might do in this case is I might do the city name. So I might do and say Glendale as a top word and move it back, and then type in Heights. All right, so I might talk a little bit about what's happening in the overall city in addition to having just the stats for the individual neighborhood, okay? And you can edit whatever information doesn't make sense. You can see there's some stats in here. So I'm just pointing out some different options you have here. If I do go back over here to the KWLS option and I pull up the snapshots, I can notice that in this case, it's called Glendale's Lakes. I can either add a snapshot or I can even just add the image of the general area here. The issue becomes is that in my area, if you look at this area is a lot larger than maybe the specific subdivision that I might be in. Okay, so I'm just kind of pointing that out, and it does, if you click here, it will give you the stats that it already has here. Okay. So just giving you guys a couple ideas there. Now let's walk through the rest of the templates here. Now the next page is comparable properties. Again, if you have the MLS number and you're going to do that, you can add those photos directly from the KWLS. Like again, I think the best way to do this is to just go by MLS number and type in the MLS number, and you can add the photos as needed here. What I think most, or what I would do in my particular business, is I'm going to actually delete everything that's here. And because what I like to do is, and I'm just selecting everything one at a time. I wanted to keep that. I'm selecting everything one at a time. And this feature might change at some point, but right now I typically am using some different resources, and because I know I won't have the time to fill this out. So I might come and I just put a page here that says comparable properties, and I can make the font really big and know I have that as a page in my listing presentation, that when I get here, I'm going to start to go to maybe my printouts from the MLS, okay, or Cloud CMA or RPR or whatever you're using. But then I'll have a page in here that says comparable properties, or if I printed it out, I could actually then add the comparable properties there. But this will give me an actual reference point to stop. As we come down, the next page talks about the seller's needs, okay? So what you'll notice here, and I'm going to zoom in here, is that there's a bunch of questions here. So you can realize, you can read right off of this, but I would make sure I have some way to copy or write down the seller's answers. So when I say, hey, visualize your dream scenario here, what does that look like? And I say, oh, I want to sell my house in 30 days. Well, why is that important to you? Because I want to move to Colorado to be with the grandkids. Right? So I want to make sure that I'm having that information here, that I'm have a place to write that down if I'm going to be asking these questions. The next page talks about the process. Now it's very important that you go and you look at the process here, because to me there's some options that need to be changed here. So for example, receive and present offers, begin attorney review. In our area, we would do this. We would hit negotiate contract, go under contract, and then begin attorney review, right? So just be aware that you pay attention to the different options here, so that they're relevant to your area. Okay. Now so now our next page that we have here is my app, the seamless way to sell. And again, I like, instead of saying ready to download my app, I like to have a URL versus the full domain here. Now, if you see that we have these guides in the URL, the guides in the app, you may want to make a guide option for every one of these in the process. That would make sense, so that it ties everything together. The next page is your custom marketing plan. Now, you guys really need to be very careful that you're going to go through this and look at what you do and what you don't do. Okay, so the custom marketing plan, there's nothing you need to pay attention to much here, but finding your buyer, right? This talks about where the buyers come from, internet, real estate agent, all these different options. Now we talk about our best in class promotional assets, smart targeted networking. So you want to read through here and make sure that if you're going to talk about beautiful postcards, that you actually do postcards. Your media plan. Okay, pay attention to this. Advanced property website property feature. You want to make sure that whatever coming soon and just listed emails, just listed postcards, if these things aren't items that you're doing, then you need to make sure that you're not advertising that, because it becomes a very easy way for the seller to cancel a deal. Again, same thing for Instagram stories, Instagram posts. If you guys aren't on those mediums, or you're not going to do those things, make sure you edit the promotional, or edit the materials appropriately. Same thing with strategic promotion. Okay, talks about coming soon markets. I know there's been a lot of debate on what that looks like. So whatever that coming soon can or cannot do in your area, you want to make sure that you are abiding by your MLS rules, and that you're not saying anything that shouldn't be said. Open house strategy. If you're not someone that does open houses, you might want to make sure that you stress that when we do an open house, though we don't necessarily need to do it for every open house, here's the process that we follow. Okay, so now we have it in the details page here. And now there's, again, items like door knocking. You want to go through here. If you're not going to door knock, you don't want to say that you do that. Real estate experience is the next page. Now this can be difficult specifically for brand new agents and agents that don't sell a lot of high volume of homes. You're going to need to change these stats on the right hand side. Now you can put in items like even your market center stats if you can get those. Or you can just delete the whole thing altogether and not have to worry about it. Okay. Right, so there's an easy way you can delete it. Then you can just make your biography. Proof is in my numbers. Okay, again, this is something that maybe you want to get these numbers from your market center, and instead of using the term is in mine, it should be is in our numbers, right? And say the numbers here represent direct represent our market center's superior dominance of the market, that we outpace the market by these stats. Okay. Your credentials, if you don't have a ton of credentials, you can even put credentials from other careers, degrees. If you want to add this page there, if not, you can just delete it. Now, leading the industry talks a little bit about Keller Williams. As you can see, we have the Y4Cs, 2Ts there, so we have the information about KW. And then we notice we have a couple pages of portfolio of excellence. Okay. Now, we can choose whether we want to add 6 previously sold homes, 3. It's going to depend on your level of experience and what you feel comfortable with. So you see there's one that has 3, one that has 6. And again, you can get these pictures and this information from the KWLS, again, by coming here, clicking on the KWLS, and if you know those MLS numbers, you can find those historic listings. Okay. So you would probably do one or the other. The other thing is featured listings. Now, if you only have one listing, what you can do is you can put that one listing down here and then put some information about the property you're going to list here. So you could just show this out. Look, here's a property I currently have listed. Here's kind of some of the marketing that what it would look like when I have your property listed, just so you know that I'm in the game. Next page is testimonials. You can edit this text here. Or we can go to, find Zillow and maybe do a screenshot and add our testimonials that way. This talks about our promise and that how we choose to do business and what we agree to do for you. And we have the bottom line. Okay, so this just talks about, hey, let's get started. And then we have the back cover of the listing presentation. What you'll notice as you go through here is that for some reason it repeats itself again. So don't go through and you need to step once you get to the back page cover here. So if you were to print this out, you have a front page and a back page. You have that option of being able to do that. So this is the listing presentation in a nutshell. When you're done, we want to make sure you click on File and click on Save. You can also download it, and typically you're going to download this option as a PDF. Now, one feature that was working that doesn't seem to be working right now is this share option. So I used to be able to, if I wanted to, let's just share this design. Let's see if it's working. It would share that one specific page. If I wanted to share the whole project, it would have basically this was my digital listing presentation here. It's not quite working now. I anticipate that will get fixed, but I just want to put it out there for you. A couple things that I didn't quite cover here is we have these options of frames. So for example, if I need to add a photo, like I want to add a photo that's in a circle here. And if I could get back to my images here, which I'm struggling to do here. Click on text. So I could drag an image over here. Just hit logos. I could drag a image over here usually, and it would allow me to I can't get to the, I'm not seeing the images here, but I could add an image and it would go directly into this circle. So I apologize if that's not working. I talked a little bit about drawings and shapes, and then we talked about text boxes and that and the ability to um, change the different items here. So one thing I just do want to point out about shapes while we're here is, let's just say I pick a box like this. I'm going to pick, and I'm going to put that right here on my presentation. Okay. Now once I have a box like this, I have the option to change the opacity. So I'm not going to do that right at the moment, but let's just say I'm going to change it to red. This is the Keller Williams red right now. Okay. And I have the stroke color. The stroke color is the border. So I'm just going to choose that my stroke color be, if I can see how it gets bigger or smaller, I can choose the color, or I can choose it to be 0 and there's no border here, and I can also change which color that's going to be. So I have this red here, and what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to change the opacity of it, and what you'll see is now that KW is kind of shining through, and I can choose how I want that to look. I can also then arrange that and maybe send this to backward so that it looks something like that, or I can bring it forward, you know, for stylistic purposes. You know, I could have something like that there where it kind of just adds a little bit of style onto there. So that's an example of how to use the opacity. All right, so this has been the entire listing presentation video. I've gone over a half an hour. I appreciate your patience getting through it all. If I can be of any help, you can always email me, johnz@kw.com. Thank you for your time.